Genie Bird Baking Company for providing the coffee and the baked goods in the back here. We also still have that virtual coffee sponsorship by Furnace Hills Coffee. So if you're virtual on Facebook Live joining us today, don't forget you can go to furnacehillscoffee.com, put in the discount code 1MC Westminster for 25% off your whole online order, and they will ship the coffee to you. Speaking of coffee, we actually have HOFFA Beans coming back today to give us an update, along with Acumen, talking about some of the business coaching services that they offer. And so let me just run through for those of you who are uninitiated as to what 1 Million Cups is all about. And I'm Graham Dodge. I should probably mention I'm the Executive Director of Magic here in Westminster. We're a 501c3 nonprofit supporting technology, education, and entrepreneurship. We are one of the community sponsors of 1 Million Cups, meaning that we host it here in our space. We also share that privilege with Startup Portal on 140. CFO Rick is here in the back from Startup Portal. And then we have, for those of you here in person, you're obviously getting to enjoy the Genie Bird baked goods and the coffee. So if you're attending virtually, you've never been here in person, please come by 38 West Main Street, Wednesday mornings. And then some days we will have it, we'll cycle off and it'll be at Startup Portal again. So for 1 Million Cups overview, our mission of 1 Million Cups is to lower the barrier for access to education, resources, and connections for entrepreneurs. This mission does not get accomplished without the pillars of the core program, which are that this is about presentations, not pitches. This is about connection, not networking. This is a culture to be for the community, by the community. Nobody has ownership of 1 Million Cups Westminster. Nobody is being paid to do 1 Million Cups Westminster. We're all volunteers, and we are radically and intentionally inclusive. The core program design is that we meet every week, Wednesdays at 9 a.m. We have 2 presenters whenever possible, like we do today, which is great. And then those organizations, we ask that they be less than 5 years old. We make exceptions when there's like a new business initiative or someone new to the area. And then we ask at the end, if I don't forget, and if Tina reminds me, what can we do as a community to help you? Is how we like to end each of these presentations. Each presenter, by the way, will have about 6 minutes or so to present, and then we'll have 15 minutes or so of Q&A afterwards. And if you're on Facebook Live, you can add your questions to the comments, and then Kim here will be monitoring the comments section to read them out loud. This is your organizing team for 1 Million Cups here in Westminster. It's myself, Graham Dodge, Russ Hammett, Vicki Slinkman from Ting, John Wheatman, attorney at law, Tina Thomas from Infinite Love Project, Julia Snap from Dirigible Systems, and Gabby Rose, also of Magic. Without further ado, I'm going to pull up the website, the new website for the HOFFA Foundation, and invite their founder, Tom Herb, to come on up. Tom?
All right. Thank you, Graham. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Tom Herb here with the HOFFA Foundation. It's certainly great to be back. A lot has happened from the last time I was here or the other place until now, and there's just a short amount of time, so I'll try to get as much in as possible. For those that don't know, HOFFA Foundation started August 18, 2019. My younger brother passed away from an overdose. That's Jimmy right there. That's also him right here in his digital art, framed by Ain't That a Frame, right here in Westminster on Main Street. Passed away from an overdose. Lived down in the Sykesville area with my family, owners of the Zumbrun Funeral Home. And as you could imagine, when you grow up in that environment and then your services, happen, your services are in your own home. So when Jimmy's final day with us, he was, of course, in the casket, and I was saying my goodbyes before I brought him to my Uncle Dale Fletcher Funeral Home here, his crematory, and had put an empty mug in his casket on his hands and had a cup of coffee in hand and said my goodbyes, and that was the last moment with him. Knew I had to do something to keep his spirit alive every single day for the rest of my life until I see him again. And went on this journey and, thought, what? Coffee brings people together. It's about connection. And went to work immediately found a roaster out in Seattle, Washington to start. Found a person that designed this, the former bag. Put up a quick website, HOFFABeans.org. HOFFA now stands for Healing Opportunity Free from Addiction, so it is an acronym now. So we took his nickname, created the acronym. We realized in October, November of 2019, a few months after he had passed, when we turned on the website and over 2,000 pounds of coffee went out the door to 25 different states, people were behind the mission because we're 501c3. All proceeds from the sale of this coffee goes to the foundation. In the very beginning, before we had a foundation, though, we were giving money to local organizations right here in Carroll County out there on the mission of fighting addiction, which is running rampant, as we all know, right? So we did that, and then, of course, people were saying, hey, why don't you make a bigger impact with your own foundation? So the foundation started just over a year ago, and the way we designed our board was that we identified people in the community that see addiction through different lenses. So we have people on the board that are in recovery. We have people on the board with kids in recovery. We have people on the board that unfortunately lost loved ones. So a variety. And we came together and we decided, you know what? We are going to purchase a home right here in Carroll County, which we did in Sykesville, called the HOFFA House. And since we opened it up last August, July and August, we've had men in there every single day making progress one day at a time. We pour an overwhelming amount of love and support, right? It's all about love and respect with these guys every single week, helping them out. And, we've had some great success stories already because of it. In fact, I was sharing earlier with Larry that, or some other folks here, I think maybe Casey, we've had folks that have come into our house already that have transitioned out, which is the ultimate goal, to get back on their feet. In fact, our house manager, he now is going to be transitioning out, and our assistant house manager is going to be stepping in for him. So I could go on about that, and that's what it's all about, every single day, creating connection, making impact out there. So we really, to chunk this thing up in the buckets, it started with coffee, right? It started with coffee. We were able to gain a lot of support from the community. I shared with some folks this morning that we just wrapped up our second annual HOFFA Classic on Monday this week, and the amount of community folks that are local business leaders and others on Monday at Piney Branch Golf Club, in addition to the surrounding counties, was amazing to see. And that's really going to allow us to propel our mission forward. There were other organizations now. What I really like to see, I mentioned this in the very beginning, was, it's great that we have an organization that can do this, but what really would make it a bigger impact is our organization plus other organizations in Carroll County, right, and outside of the county, locking arms and coming together as one. And we're seeing that already. There are some right here local that we've already partnered up with. There are some outside that we partnered up with, 4 of them that were there on Monday. 2 were from within the county. 1 was in Howard County, and another one traveled all the way up from Richmond, Virginia. One of the largest organizations in the United States called McShin Foundation. They oversee an organization called NAR. It's the National Alliance for Recovery Residences. They're basically the gold standard of sober living, right? Ensuring that policies, procedures, structure, everything you're supposed to be doing, right, is done the right way. They've spearheaded that, and we're looking to, of course, bring that into our community as well with the sober living environment. So a lot going on. I do want to share some highlights around the coffee since the last time we were able to share. We just formed a partnership with the Baltimore Ravens. And anyone, of course, in the room here or even online familiar with an initiative that Ravens have called Tackle Opioid Addiction. Right? That's good, right? Many people have in a room on Monday, and just a couple hands went up out of several hundred people. And it's interesting. You go to the Ravens website, you won't see it unless you type it in their search bar, right? And then once you put it in their search bar, a page will come up. They started this in 2017. If you watched the Ravens, there's some the commercials last season. Jonathan Ogden with naloxone, right? They're starting to talk about it more. The Monday Night Football last season, if you remember, when they played the Raiders on Monday night, the story about Darren Waller, the story about Max Crosby. That Tuesday morning, we reached out to a friend of mine that works for the Ravens and thanked them for finally getting it out there in the community. And so this initiative they've been doing since 2017, every game they play, for every tackle, for every fumble recovery and interception, they have money that a company called Leidos puts together, and every season that money goes to organizations fighting addiction. So for the first 4 seasons, it went to the Oxford houses. This past season, they selected our organization, and instead of just providing us the money for the initiative, we actually created a program for their employees at Leidos, right, that are struggling throughout the country. They came up with their own coffee blend that was sampled and brewed right back here at Pork and Bean Store in Westminster. A bag that's co-branded between Leidos, the Baltimore Ravens, and the HOFFA Foundation. 2,000 bags will be put together right here in Carroll County and deployed all throughout the United States with their HR team and others to get out there and have that conversation to make impact. And there, of course, there'll be a press release going out. So that was a big highlight as well since we last were here. And then also we had shared some insight around the Carroll Biz Challenge and what we're doing there with the HOFFA Beans and Biscuits food trailer that's currently at the Maryland Wrap House over in Manchester being wrapped and fully branded. That vehicle will not only serve the coffee and then local baked goods from a local bakery, it'll be the message on wheels, right? So us getting out there in the community, creating that connection, and the folks that will be working on the trailer, anyone that's in recovery, of course, including the men in our homes and the other homes, the women here in Rising Above Addiction, anyone that wants to be a part of it can certainly be a part of it. So there's a lot going on there as well. I guess, to kind of wrap it up, something else that we just launched here for those that want more information or just learn more about the organization overall, our new website, hoffafoundation.org. You'll see it when we're not going to do it on this discussion today, but as you scroll across the top, you can learn more about our different organizations, everything from HOFFA Beans, HOFFA Beans and Biscuits, HOFFA House, the list goes on. There's ways in which you can engage and volunteer and support the mission as well. And that's kind of where we've been, where we're at today. We know that I would say that we have our main house in the southern part of Carroll County, but our plan is to certainly look for other areas of the county to perhaps open up some sober living homes and continue to make our impact right here in our local community. So, with that being said, that's all I've got, unless you all got questions or any feedback.
Well, let's give Tom a round of applause. So yes, if you have any questions and you're following on Facebook Live, enter them into the comments. Anyone here have a question for Tom? Yes, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Tom. I'm Laura Becker. I'm with Members First Federal Credit Union. Do you provide, do you just sell the bags of coffee, or do you wholesale coffee to organizations for their employees or their residents, say at a treatment center or anything like that? Or is it only the bags?
Yes, so thank you, Laura. So absolutely, we have a complete wholesale program that we've designed. In fact, if you go out to the hoffabeans.org website, which isn't up currently, but you can see it in there. You can do the wholesale program. That notification will come to our team, and we can set it up so we can provide those wholesale rates to organizations such as that, for sure. Yeah, and we do along with the bags. Something else that we've introduced. There are 10 stores now throughout the Carroll County. One outside of the county, 2 outside of the county. Santoni's down in Glendon, and then Farm Chicks Corner Market on Barrington's Lane. Jamie and Lauren, great people down there as well. But the rest are here in the county, local stores, and you can do it like a store finder. But we have K-Cups too now, and we have decaf, and starting to expand it a little bit as well, based on just feedback from the community. But we can set you all up with a wholesale, for sure. Thank you.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, Laura kind of stole my question a little bit. I have a bed and breakfast, and so as you might imagine, we go through a fair amount of coffee. So like 4 or 5 pounds at a time, kind of thing. So I would be interested in buying more in bulk, possibly even reselling. We're toying with the idea of starting a gift shop of local products. Also, there are some shops opening up in Tawnytown. I don't know how you would handle wholesaling out or consigning to a shop like that, where you put your information out there and also sell your coffee. If you'd like to talk about it, we can talk about that all the time.
Certainly, thank you. Yeah, we can absolutely set that up. And I think so. My mother, Jimmy's mother as well. There was the first year, and every day, the grief and just trying to pick yourself up and get through it. We actually built a fulfillment center. My parents live in the Zumbrun Funeral Home down in Eldersburg. We built the fulfillment center in the funeral home in this spare room, so it's all HOFFA branded. She's got the coffee in there, and she does all the shipping and interaction with people, and that keeps her occupied with a purpose. As she says, she's not busy; she's occupied with a purpose now, and I see her smile again. So saying that because as you all reach out around these different things, the wholesale program or in the bed and breakfast or wherever, most likely you'll be working with my mother Connie, and it's a good thing. So thank you.
Just so you know, it's not just good coffee, it's great coffee. I've had a lot of it. So I highly recommend it if you just like coffee. The mission's, the mission, but the coffee's great.
To Larry's point, so quick story around that. So I mentioned Seattle in the beginning, organization out there, Joe's Garage Coffee, and we had all these samples, and we said this needs to be. Jimmy was, high quality guy. We want good coffee, like just, it's the mission, but make sure the coffee's really good. And if you're out there in Seattle, you're competing against the big ones, right? So Joe's Garage Coffee delivered a solid product. Of course, we wanted to go local. That's when we reached out to the team at Pork and Bean Store, great partners, and they came up with this roast here that's very similar, and it is amazing. I drink it
The thing is, I don't know if you still do tours, but my wife and I went to the opening of their residence in Sykes. It's in Sykesville.
Yes.
If you have a chance to go out and look, you should really go out and look. It's very impressive. They didn't just buy an old house and let people move in, but they really redid the whole house. I mean, they really have committed themselves to the project.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, it's we had a couple local organizations. One up here on Main Street, Atlas, the real estate team up here. They sent out a group of people last summer, built a whole fire pit area along the creek. Went out there a few weeks ago with a bobcat and cleared out all this brush. We're making a bigger space so we can do more community-based events on the property. So it's but to your point, that anyone that would like to come out and see, certainly let us know.
Just a comment from Vicki Slinkman from Ting. Awesome to see the progress your organization has made since the Biz Challenge. Great work.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Vicki.
Any other questions? How do we buy one of those HOFFA shirts that you're wearing?
I know, I'm lining it up too.
I know. So I mentioned Maryland Rap House, Maryland Print House, Maryland Rap House. Andrew Boone, he's on our board, right? Great guy. I mean, he's on the board and does a great job with our apparel out there. And so if you go to HOFFABeans.org, there's a shop now out there where you can see some of the apparel that we have available. And then also, we just wrapped up on Monday that HOFFA Classic Golf event out of Piney Branch. And there's, if you go to HOFFAClassic.com, the pro shop is still open. There's some really cool apparel items in there as well.
Tina, you had a question?
Yes, I'm curious in regards to the house. I've heard other organizations trying to put together and navigate through the health system that we have in regards to regulation and then support from the state and how the insurance maze works and all of that. How have you been able to navigate that to put your house together, and do you have aspirations for another house?
Yeah, so we don't do anything with like the state or insurance. We're strictly we provide the opportunity where when these guys come in, right? I mean, it take them a couple of weeks, could it be a month, just to get on their feet and get a job. And so like the money to be in our home will never be an issue. So we're not funded by any state, local government at all. It's our 501c3. These guys come in there, they get set up, and if they need help along the way with anything, we provide that support for them. So we really haven't dove into any of that because we don't believe at this point in time, we have to explore that avenue yet. I'm sure at some point it will come up, but right now it's, we just opened up the home, make sure these guys are taken care of, and eventually down the road, we may be looking into something like that.
So is that where also the National Association you were talking about?
Yeah, that's
comes in to help you with the structure of putting it together?
yes. So we were fortunate to where one of our board members that's in recovery. She has over 10 years of experience in the treatment world with what she does, and she knew all of the NAR guidelines that they follow.
Johanna?
No, Melissa.
Oh, Melissa.
Yeah, Melissa. Yeah. So, but Johanna's great. So Melissa, so the policies and procedures, right? Put all this together before even day one, and our house manager obviously has familiarity with all these policies and procedures, and so we implemented that from the very beginning. So we're not kind of learning along the way, and because of that, I've been able to compare ours versus other homes, and there's always room for opportunity, but we're doing really well with that. So much so that I believe once we go through that certification process through NAR, that we should be able to just go through with flying colors based on what we've instilled already. So NAR, I refer to as the gold standard. The founder of the McShin Foundation, John Shinholzer, traveled 3 hours up here to be here on Monday, and him and his wife, Carol McDade, they've really been the ones to not only build out NAR, but the 31 chapters now in 31 states, working on Maryland now. And, Carol's on the Hill often lobbying and working with different people, and they really help open up doors for us. But that's our blueprint, is to make sure that we are aligned to them, certified by them, and really the kudos there goes to Melissa and our house manager, making sure that structure is in place for us. So,
And if we have someone who may be open to referral, like they're waking up to their circumstance, how do they get into your system, into your support? Because it sounds like you've got everything pretty much in structure, which is what they need when they're trying to figure out their next steps. So how do they get a hold of you? I see you applied for admission.
yeah.
Can you talk just a little bit on the support you have for the community?
Certainly. So that intake process, so of course we've got, any first person that calls our number up there or reaches out here, instantaneously it's going to our people in the back end. Melissa and the house manager and others take action immediately when that comes through and determines what's needed at that point in time, right? If it's not being with us now, it's most important, what do they need at that point in time, right? Be it getting into treatment right away, taking action, whether it be sober living, whether it's ours or somebody else's. So they're the ones on the back end that manage all of the intake process. So, you're welcome.
Any last questions? Besides the last question,
What can we as a community do to help you?
This community, I was born and raised in this town. Went to Westminster High. Casey and I grew up together. Played baseball. We were 12 years old at Bennesurf Park, right? Champions that year with the Orioles. Yeah. And so the amount of support that the community has given us has been amazing. And I think the biggest thing that our community can continue to do is to continue to work towards breaking the stigma, right? Having the ability to just have a conversation, right, and talk about it. And we all know what's going on right now. It doesn't discriminate. It does not discriminate. I have met more people in the last year or so that have come up to me and said, so of course, outside of the foundation and my corporate job as well, I'm very vocal now about this, right? There was a time where I wasn't too vocal, and I beat myself up a lot because, it's just one of those things you kind of hold back in the business world. And now I've been on a mission to get it out there. And because of doing that, it has brought other people within the company that I work for and outside of the company to hit me up on the sideline, thank me for being, that champion to carry the flag, but also share what they're going through that they'll never share probably with other people because they're not ready to share yet. So I think that just the community being open, transparent, and real with the situation and not looking to just kind of tuck it away thinking that'll never happen to me or my family, because I can tell you one thing, right? And I've said this a million times, I'll keep saying it. We're in a club, my family, that nobody wants to be a part of. And if you can do something right now to prevent your loved ones, your friends, your neighbors from not being in this club, do it. Take the action. Don't think about it. Don't overthink it. Don't think that it's going to take care of itself. If you have the ability to take action and help. So I just think the community, just support, awareness, and conversation are important.
Thanks, Tom.
I have another question, I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Go ahead.
So, does your organization then also provide, I don't want to say support services, but a support group, say, for the families of these folks that are going through this time in their lives, to help them understand what's happening in the brain with the addiction and why their loved one doesn't act like they used to, so that the family understands more, so that they can be even more supportive of their loved one?
Yeah, Laura, so there's we don't have it in our foundation like spearheaded by us, but we're aware of other organizations like the Maryland Coalition of Families. There's Lady Beth Schmidt that has come out to our house and facilitated Narcan training for the residents and for us. I know that their organization has that network for families to get together and have that conversation. I believe one of the things that they're currently working on outside of the families and the parents, even like the siblings, because what we go through, myself, my sister, my other brother, right, and the loss of our brother is different than what our parents are going through. But I do know that the Maryland Coalition of Families, any support around that, you can reach out to Beth Schmidt on that for sure.
All right, great. Thank you, Tom. All right, so stretch your legs for like a minute or so. We'll get set up with the next presenter.
Is anyone celebrating a birthday between now and end of May? In the room?
Birthdays. Evan?
Evan? When's your birthday? Today?
Very fun, yeah.
Why is my face not working?
Good morning.
I thought I was gonna have like a little festival that we were gonna go to check it out. Now that it's so now we're just we're ready to paint signs. And I'm like,
All right, everybody. Let me introduce our next presenter, Joe Madico from Acumen CPG. Joe, go ahead and take it away.
Terrific. Thank you, everybody. It's very nice to be here. The voice is a little bit froggy, so hopefully I sound okay. So my name is Joe Madico. I'm from a company called Acumen CPG. And what we focus on are consumer packaged goods and helping people bring product ideas to life. So, I'll ask a question. This is probably a biased room because of the nature of what this office does and entrepreneurship. But who knows somebody who tried to launch or commercialize a product idea, and were they successful or did they fail? And I think we all know somebody who has that idea. We all probably had the idea ourselves, which is that one product idea, that $1 million idea that we know that if we could just get it into the market, it could be amazing. And the truth of the matter is if we think about all the products that we love, all of the things that we grow up with, the iconic things that we use every day, they kind of improve our lives and make our lives better, they really largely, for the most part, did not come from a large established product company. They came from the genius of individuals like ourselves who had that idea, who had the gumption to do something about it and to try to bring it to life. But unfortunately, almost everybody who tries to commercialize a new product idea ends up failing. And they fail for a number of predictable reasons. And that's what I want to talk to you about today and what we can do about it to make it better. Some of the products, this is just a quick little splash. This is actually what I use for my Zoom background. But these are just some of the products and some of the brands and the companies that over the last 25 to 30 years, I've either led directly or I've kind of helped assist to be able to commercialize and to help in the marketplace. And what I have found after 25 years of kind of doing a corporate thing to then break and transition to do an independent consulting business is what's hanging people up, what's causing the problem. And what I usually see is a pattern of three things, but there's a lot of variance that could also come from it. One of them could be, I've got an idea, what do I need to do first? And they run off and they get a patent. And they'll spend $10,000, $20,000 on a patent. And then they later find out that the patent that they got so very early in the process is not applicable, because by the time they actually did the design and developed their product, what they tried to protect with their IP doesn't match with the physical product that they're going to be producing later. Another example could be, let me go out and get a prototype. I need to get something, a physical prototype. And so once again, they run out, they find a designer, they figure out how to do it, and they get a prototype. And again, that can be anywhere from $200 to, $20,000. And once again, they get further down the path and they realize that this prototype is really kind of worthless. And it's this type of a pattern that we see again and again. And I think what's common to all of these types of missteps is what's missing. Because there's certainly no shortage of patent attorneys who are very happy to be able to take your business. There's no shortage of contract manufacturers who are very happy to take your business, designers, and go down the list. And so what I would argue, what is missing is knowledge and information. And so if all of these innovations that we all enjoy and we use every day come from individuals and not from large companies, how do we break this issue of access to knowledge? Because certainly if you're working at a Procter & Gamble, if you're working at a Gillette or a Hasbro, you've got armies of people, armies of resources, and you've got that tribal knowledge that they've had in place for decades, if not hundreds of years. And so what we want to do is be able to try to take all of that knowledge and all of that information that people have and democratize it in a way to where it's accessible to people. So that when they're ready to make that step and they've been thinking about that idea and they want to go forward, that they could do so in a very thoughtful manner. And so what I want to talk about today is I'm going to go through 4 different slides that kind of talk a very high level view what that development process looks like and what we're trying to do with our services. And I also wanted to link this to an event that we've got coming up on June 9th. It's called the Innovator's Guide to Product Development. And it's going to be a symposium, a virtual symposium that we're going to hold. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to reach out and to try to grab a broader audience of people and to be able to walk them through the services that Acumen CPG offers and trying to help that education piece and helping people get over that hump and to not make some of those missteps that everybody seems to make. And so with no further ado, this is just a quick little splash. So this is the first thing I want to talk about. So, as I alluded, when people have an idea, the natural instinct is to do something, to take action for action's sake. And as I said, a lot of times it's getting a patent, it's working with the designer, it's knocking on the door to a contract manufacturer and say, can somebody produce it? But what they never really ask along the way before they get started is this actually a good idea? Is this something that I should be pursuing? And I would argue that because we're very passionate and we can see it in our mind's eye and we know the potential that this idea holds, we get blinded to flaws or issues in the proposition. And we tell our wife, we tell our husband, we tell our dog, they all nod their head and say, you're right, it's $1 million idea, it's great. But will the market agree? Will your consumers agree? Who are your consumers? And so what the very first foundational step of what we do as part of our work is to first say, before you spend $1 or minute one on trying to develop your idea, let's actually take a look at it and say, what do you want to do with your idea? Do you want to produce it and compete in the marketplace? Maybe you want to license it and find a licensing partner who can go ahead and pay you for your IP. Perhaps you want to actually sell your idea outright. It's like, I've got no interest in collecting royalties. I don't want to produce it. I just want to protect this idea and then have somebody buy it outright. So there's lots of different things you can do with it. But it's that first question to say, what's your end goal and what you want to do? The next thing that I think is really important is to say, okay, what is your priorities on your project? Do you want to do a very quick speed to market? Is that what you're all about? Are you about a very modest, tight, controlled budget? Is that really what you need to protect? Maybe you have a scope that's so ambitious and so complex that solving technical issues is going to be the lion's share of your work. But it's this idea of what are your priorities and what are you trying to do? Then the third thing I do as part of this first process is really getting clear on what I call your right to succeed. And the right to succeed is a terminology I use. It causes some people to scratch their heads. But it's the concept that if you have an idea, does it have the basic ingredients in order to enjoy commercial success when it's actually launched? And so that could be knowledge of the competition. Do you have a good profit model? Do you have good pricing? Do you have the technical expertise? Do you have the wherewithal to launch it? And there's about 7 different points that I use to be able to kind of assess a project right to succeed. And the point through all of this is that it's great that you've got an idea, but let's literally spend days, if not maybe a couple of weeks, and $0 going through and verifying that what needs to be correct is correct before you start spending money and start going down the path. And so this is a very quick process. It's not difficult, but it allows you to be able to make fundamental improvements and changes before they start to blossom and bloom into some later problem that's going to be much more expensive and much more difficult to unwind later. We then go into the next part of the process, which we call define. And again, we're getting very close now to doing the fun part, which is the actual development part. But you've got the idea, you've gone through, you've refined it, you now feel it's good to go. It's only taken a couple of weeks to get to that point. And now you need to build a roadmap to say, okay, what are you actually going to build? And again, back to this idea that we don't want to just go for action's sake. What can we do to build a plan so that this can be successful? Because once again, back to the individual innovator and the aspiring innovator versus established Procter & Gamble, one of them has much different resources, one has much different access to time than the other. And for that independent innovator, that person who wants to go forward, they're going to be doing this as a side hustle. They're going to be doing it as something that they're going to try to build and launch and stand up, but they're not going to have unlimited time, unlimited money. And so again, the idea is let's put a plan together now that we know what we're doing. Let's build a schedule. Let's figure out who our competition is. Let's figure out who's our target consumer that we're actually going to delight. Who are we trying to satisfy and please with this product? And so that's what we go into next, which is this idea about planning out and pulling together a plan. We then transition into what's really the fun part of the project that everybody thinks of, the sexy part, which is the actual development. It's working with industrial designers and CAD drawings and sculptors and branding and style guides, all the cool stuff. And you know, I grew up in the toy industry is where I started my career. So I started off at Kenner Products, and I came in as an engineer, as a project engineer, mechanical specifically. And I didn't know what an engineer would do or what an engineer's job was. I just knew what my natural talents were, what my skills were. And so I started to do my first internship, and I got a job interview with Kenner Toys in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I didn't even realize Kenner was in town, and so I got lucky, and I went on an interview, and the guy pulled out a bunch of G.I. Joe toys and showed it to me, and I had my blue interview suit on, and it went beautifully. And long story short is that started me on this process of working with creative resources, designers, marketers, engineers, sculptors, model makers. And that kind of started me on this process. And again, this is that fun part that I'm referring to, which is that creativity, that creation of something. And this is really what people want to get to, and this is the fun stuff. And so what I want to do is be able to work with folks so that when they get to this fun stuff, that they can actually be successful and not waste their time and not waste their money. And then the last thing we do is really a deliver stage, which is you've developed the idea, you've pulled it all together, now you actually need to do something with it. And if you intend to license this idea and you've gotten your patents and you've locked up your IP, maybe this last part isn't about manufacturing. Maybe it's about pulling together a compelling pitch deck so that you can seek investors or you can seek licensees or you can seek other people you need. If you intend to manufacture and compete in the marketplace, this fourth step is really all about actually producing and delivering to the market. So finding a contract manufacturer, producing it, a supply chain, the fulfillment piece. And through the course of everything we've talked today, hopefully what you've seen is that there's really 2 components. There's a commercial side of the business and there's a technical side of the business. And they all have to be intertwined and pulled together. And so what we want to do at Acumen CPG and what we want to do at the Innovator's Guide to Product Development is we want to be able to not just focus on marketing, not just focus on engineering, but really kind of focus on that fully integrated commercial and technical new product development process. So that when people have those ideas and they've decided to kind of go forward and say, you know what, I'm tired of my day job, I hate my boss, what the heck am I doing here? I'm going to pursue that dream. I'm going to go forward and finally do it. They can do so in a way that they can have a better degree of success. Because I really think that one of the coolest things is that people go forward, they have that dream, and all it ends up doing is draining their bank account and then making them bitter because they wanted to pursue it and it went sideways. And that's just a terrible thing. And the good news is it's an avoidable thing. And that's what we're trying to do here is, again, bring education and knowledge towards accessible to the people who need it. and have it affordable, and also have it something that's very doable. And so what we do is we sell little individual chunks of help along the way, so that people can go ahead and have a successful journey. And to be clear, we're not looking to do the work for them. We're much more about the education piece and helping people learn and understand, as opposed to give me your project and I'll launch it for you. Because I certainly have done that before. I'm capable of it. But I think we can have a much broader reach and much bigger impact if we can focus on the education piece and not the actual execution piece for the individuals. So let me pause there and kind of turn it over for questions. But hopefully that gives a little bit of a flavor of what we want to do. The nature of product development and how an idea makes it all the way to a store shelf, it's a process. It could take anywhere from 12 months to 36 months. So it can be a very long, arduous thing. So we could really get into the weeds on a lot of detail. And I'd love to geek out and talk to anybody who wants to go through any of the details and answer a million little questions. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to sit there and talk today and to be able to introduce the subject.
Thank you, Joe. All right, who's got a question for Joe? Yes, Chris.
Where were you 20 years ago when I was sitting on my deck and tie wiring bamboo tiki lamps to my deck railing, thinking there's got to be a better way.
There's got to be a better way.
And we're thinking, but I had no idea how to get that idea into any kind of model to get finance, And I know, where were you then?
Yeah, I was
a year or two later, you find these things in the marketplace all over the place now. That where you can stick a tiki lamp in on a hanger on the deck, or one that clamps to your railing, or these things are everywhere. So my question is, is that what you do? If somebody comes to you with an idea like that, can you then put them in the right direction of how to manufacture a prototype, where to get manufacturing, where to go to get financing?
Absolutely.
Kind of thing?
Yeah. So what we'll do is a couple of different things. But first off, we'll sit down, listen to their idea, understand where they are. A lot of times when I engage with people, the ideal situation is I get them the next day they've had the idea and they're ready to go forward, but they haven't done anything at all. Because that's a perfect scenario, because then it's a clean sheet of paper to say, okay, how do you want to be successful? Where do you want to go? A lot of times I get people who are halfway down the path, which is they've done a lot of these classic missteps, they're in trouble, they've spent a lot of money, but the dream's not dead. They still want to go forward. And in that case, I want to call it a salvage operation, but it's much more about fixing what needs to be fixed and getting the train back on the tracks. And so absolutely, so depending on where you are in that process, for sure. And in the ideal scenario, what I really want to do is before we jump into prototypes or anything at all like that, which is let's get back to basics, getting clear what you want to do with that idea. What are your goals? And then with those goals in mind and clearly identified, let's then construct a plan that can get you to those goals and go forward. Yes.
What is your service area, Tom?
When you say service area, can you say a little bit
So
more?
do you help businesses just here in Westminster, or just in Maryland, or just on the East Coast, or?
No problem. Yeah. So I say I'm national, if not global. So I've been working internationally my entire career, but I think the focus is on the U.S. One of the things that's really been encouraging the last few years is this trend to manufacturing return to the U.S. And I think people are taking a look at global supply chain, the reality of kind of where we've gotten ourselves over the last few decades, and saying, you know what, maybe it's time to bring some of these things home and repatriate some of these businesses back. So we've seen this big uptrend coming, to the U.S. And so while our business is really focusing on the U.S., it truly is global, and that's who we try to serve. And we go after two groups, which I didn't mention earlier. One of them I call it's the aspiring innovator, and it's the people like ourselves who have an idea and want to go forward. But the other group is really established product companies. And it could be people that, who stood up a business, they had that idea, and they went through the hard, arduous process of launching that first product, made all of the mistakes, but despite all of the headwinds, still got it over the finish line. Usually what happens in those situations are those folks, that lack of knowledge hasn't been solved, it's still there. And all of a sudden they start to see some popularity and the sales start to tick up and their item is actually doing well. But now that lack of knowledge starts to become the limiter to their growth, and their ability to scale the business is now limited by their lack of information. So that's the second group we go after, which is people going through those growing pains to say, okay, we got to untie this knot and figure out what's at stake here and what's going on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
So I
Rick.
guess one thing that, if you could clarify who's presenting on the 9th?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. So it's going to be 4 different panels for the 4 different groups we talked about. And we actually have some really terrific groups of people. So we've got, and Larry Wilner, actually bring Larry up here, but Larry is my partner on this, and so he's been helping me produce it, and he's been the driving force behind it, and so check me if I miss any. But we have NGM Law, which is going to be a patent and trademark attorney services. And the idea is what we want to do is not just have me up there talking and blabbering about all of these subjects, but instead tee up a subject and then have our panel of experts actually talk about it from their functional expertise. And then what they see from a real law firm or what they see from a real contract manufacturing resources. So we've got patent attorneys and trademark attorneys. We've got a marketing specialist. We've got a company that focuses on supply chain and manufacturing. We've got industrial designers. Larry, who else am I forgetting? Is that the core of it?
We've got e-commerce, digital marketing.
Thank you very much. The e-commerce specialist.
I'll back up. So,
Yeah.
just so you know, Joe could talk about this for 10 minutes. So I convinced him to allow other people to talk. So he's been gracious enough to allow us to build these other panels and bring them up. And believe me, I've learned so much in the last 3 months listening to Joe talk that I never knew about before. But we have Focus Funnels, which is they're based out in California. They're a bunch of quote-unquote, spare me, millennial young people who are specialized in e-commerce.
Let's come up here, Larry. That we can be in front of the camera.
Wow.
Yeah, he's going to be in front of the camera anyway.
I'm good. E-commerce, digital marketing. So they're really specific to e-commerce. And how do you market your products, right? We have David Warshawski that runs W Ventures, who represents the venture capital space. I don't know if you ever heard of W Ventures. He's in Mount Washington. They've created their own venture studio. So venture capitalists now, or instead of just throwing money at prospects, are now building their own companies within their venture capital world. So they're funding it, they're taking ownership. David's going to be speaking. You mentioned Brian Lawrence, who's an industrial designer. And what's really cool for me, all those pictures you see up there were all industrial designs that Brian had a part in building. And I love the creative piece, and so Brian's going to be talking about that. Trying to think of Dennis Sullivan, who's with Breakthrough Marketing Pros. And Dennis works with a lot of mid-market sized companies and helps them turn around and expand their sales through a variety of different marketing techniques. And actually, Joe is going to be speaking at a big event called Be More Bold, which is on the 13th, so you should look that up. Be More Bold. You should all think about joining on, not just to see Joe, but there are a lot of other people. It's a full-day event, and I highly recommend that. And Rick and Graham will all have free tickets for you guys. So Graham doesn't have them yet. Rick already does. So regardless, if you want to join our event, it's virtual. Even if you just sit at your desk and do other things and turn the laptop on so you can listen, you don't have to be visually present. It's just going to be tremendous content.
Yeah, and you spur a kind of a sum up thought on that, Larry, which is the idea that what we want to do is take people on a helicopter and give them that large end-to-end view of the development process. And the logic there is this, that knowledge of what's around the corner, knowledge of the journey ahead can help people avoid the mistakes as well as position themselves to have the most success and to be strong as possible. And so instead of zooming in on one little part, we want to say, no, here's what the total flow is going to look like. So that people have that knowledge prior to step number one, so that when they do start to engage and start to go forward, they can do so in a very purposeful, intentional way and really kind of increase their chances of success. Because really what we want to do is to unlock this innovation potential that really exists out there and help people avoid these resources that will drain you dry, but really not deliver you any kind of real information on how to be successful with your consumer product. So any other questions or anything I can answer from anybody? Yes?
Who's on your team?
My team, as far as Acumen CPG's team, so it's myself. I'm solo, but what I do is I have a decentralized group of subject matter experts that I pull forward. And so in the course of 30 years of kind of working in about 8 or 9 different companies professionally, I've had the good fortune to kind of work with lots of different individuals, and many of them are independent freelancers at this point. And so if I've got somebody and I need somebody who knows wood, or if I need somebody who knows about branding and packaging, I've got my Rolodex I can pull forward and redeploy the subject matter experts as needed, project by project, based on the need. One of the realities of developing a product, whether it's a Swiffer or a toy or a toothbrush, there's a lot of commonality that kind of flows across all projects. And I say that the information is fungible, that how an idea makes it to the store shelf is really reapplicable unless you get really specific of super high tech or something very technical. And so the basic bones are the correct and they're transferable, but there are those times when you need that subject matter expert who has a formulation background or a regulatory background or something very mechanical. And then we bring them forward and deploy them on the project.
Are all the manufacturers that you would be referring businesses to, are they all overseas, or are there any in the U.S.? Like, what is that landscape?
Yeah,
like?
terrific. They're almost all in the U.S. right now. It's the reality of it. I'm always looking for other international options. I've been working in China for a long time over the course of the years, but I'm now shifting other stuff if they really have an international need to say maybe India might be a better fit, just because of a lot of volatility in the world. But again, back to domestic, to where almost every one of my clients and people I talk to, the desires to do things in the U.S. And so that's why I've been really working to build that infrastructure to try to support that U.S. And we definitely have some headwinds when it comes to supply chain and labor shortages and all kinds of crazy things that are going on in the world these days, but it's U.S. based. And that's actually one of the biggest challenges. And there's a company that we mentioned, didn't talk yet, which is called Gemba. Gemba is out of Austin, Texas, and they actually specialize in networks of contract manufacturers and more of the back-end production piece. So that when people have an idea, how do you approach a factory? How do you find a factory? How do you find a good factory, let alone a factory? And that's a big part of the mystery, because what do? You open up Google and you just start looking for a contract manufacturer. That's going to be an ugly search. And so we have to do something to be able to kind of point people to correct domestic manufacturers.
Wow. That's cool. Any other questions for Jim?
Cool. Well, thank you everybody for the opportunity to speak today and listening. I do appreciate it. And hopefully we can see you guys at the event on June 9th. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Tina, you want to wrap us up?
Can I jump in?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Sorry, Tina. Treasurer, I'm sneaking in a community update. But, so we're at Startup Portal. We're going to be there on the 9th. At Startup Portal, we're going to cast it. So if anyone wants to come over, I think Chris, we may replicate sitting around a table, chairs, give you a few beers, and have you come up with an idea as you go through. But we're going to cast it there and have some fun as we go. And thank you, Larry, for the tickets. And if anybody needs them, just reach out. But a few weeks ago, we opened up Startup Portal Cumberland. And the day before, unfortunately, had a little incident with the sewer. So Nick was fortunate enough to be there to really run with it. And, I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that. So in that effort, I just want to give Nick a little gift. And I hope Judith appreciates this, but, Nick, crap happened. I found it online. So, there you go.
Judy, you want to sign it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Judy.
Get the author to sign it.
Absolutely. So the other thing is to kind of on top of this in the month of June. One of the things Nick and I have been doing is going around networking. We ask people, do you know what equity crowdfunding is? 9 out of 10 times, people are like, no. So we're hosting every week online in June, hopefully longer, but just a small session where people can get an understanding of equity crowdfunding and what it's about. So to your point about getting your product development ready to go, equity crowdfunding is something that you can get the community to help you get basically the product funded or the sample product funded without going and borrowing from grandma or going to the bank. And Members First is here today, as guests. And one of the things they'd love to have you, but at some point in time, you got to be ready for them. So that's June 9th. We'll have it on our website where you can register. It doesn't cost anything. And like I said, June 9th is the event for these guys. We're every Thursday in June. I think we're having it like 6 o'clock. But yeah, come to Startup Portal on June 9th, and we'll have some fun and listen to these guys as we go. So thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it. Yeah, I can attest to the equity crowdfunding. My former business raised about $1 million on a platform called Seed Invest, and if we had someone like Rick to work with, it would have been a lot less painful than it was.
And just for some of you who don't know, there's a difference between like a Kickstarter type crowdfunding campaign versus equity crowdfunding, which is what Rick is talking about. All right, so Tina, come on up and close us out.
Wow, this has been amazing. This has been fun. I appreciate everybody being here. And thank you to HOFFA, our first speaker. Thank you to Acumen CPG as our second speaker. Thank you to Jeannie Bird for the go-go juice and the sweets. And thank you to Magic and the space here. And the water, nice little addition. Appreciate that. Thank you to Startup Portal for all of your assistance. We are 1 Million Cups Westminster, an entrepreneurial community here to help each other and lift each other up. If you'd like to become a part of our community, tap into some of the amazing entrepreneurial resources that we have for that crazy idea that you've got, that aha moment, and you're not quite sure where it could possibly go or how it could plug into this amazing community. Go to 1millioncups.com, the number 1millioncups.com/Westminster, and click Apply to Present. It just takes a couple of sentences, and then you can come meet us and we can help you, and Westminster's a fun place to be. Come join us. See you next week.